Hello everybody, here's some kind words from Chris Sheehan. He's the guy that did most of the lyrics on The Lost Chapter. So I'm just on to say hello, introduce him. Here's some words from Chris Sheehan. Very nice man, love to love. Speak soon, ta-ra.
Tell us about Marty as a songwriter.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think when I first met Marty up a mountain in Italy with a load of songwriters, it was I think we're expecting a pop star who was just going to sit there and expect you to write a song for him, and it just was such an amazing experience. It's completely different. He was just like your mate. Really quickly we were mates, and just delving into Matt would tell you this, when we were in the studio, all of his influences are like, whether it's John Martin or Nick Drake or Little Feat, or he loves the songwriting of Burt Bacharach and Hal David, and what was the guy from the musicals?
Leslie Bricusse.
Leslie Bricusse would talk about a lot, and it was just like totally not what we were expecting, because you thought like you were going to be working for somebody and you were working with somebody. And I think it was someone who was on your level, which is weird because he's obviously a big star as well. So I think it's quite but that's the thing that all songwriters have, is if you're a proper songwriter, there's no age, there's no levels of success, there's 2 or 3 people in a room sharing an experience and trying to get to each other's story and trying to express each other's story. And I think if that's one thing Marty's got a lot of, it's some absolutely amazing stories, but he was really good at helping me open myself out for what I was going through at the time, but knowing how to make that relate to something in his life as well. So all of the songs, I think, started from a place where maybe it ended up for me about one thing, but then Marty's sort of took it on as his own and it became about his story. And I think he has a really beautiful story about the song Boulevard of Life, which maybe he'll talk to you about. But it was a totally different experience for me, because I was used to like writing about me and what I was going through and raging against the world around me, or whatever had me fired up at the time. And it was a really different muscle to exercise, to be helping someone else tell a story for their fans and for their world, So he has a really brilliant expression he uses, because I had a tendency to be very wordy with the lyrics, and I'd be trying to say too many things, and he'd just say, "I boil down the gravy," and sorry for the impression, Marty, by the way. By the end of the whole session, after the first day, like for the rest of the weeks, I'd always know as soon as he'd either be stirring the gravy, or I'd know straight away, I've got to take some words out there, because we'd be working so fast as well. So and
humility as well, sort of down to earth.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing, really. I think to come as he did on that first time, all the way across to Italy, and a farm full of 20 songwriters, some of which had done some big things, many of which were on the first record or were just getting into the business. And he just, he did the same in Kent. And he just sat up with us till 2 or 3 in the morning. Obviously Marty doesn't drink, but he'd be sat there whilst everyone was having a beer or whatever. And we were just talking about music. And you think to yourself, God, this guy knows his music. But he's not trying to prove anything to anyone. He actually was really interested in what we were doing, and it sort of led to then working with me and Matt and mining that thing that we'd got with the Bench Connection, which was this beautiful acoustic sort of world. He got it, totally got it. He knew when he heard an open tuning why it was special. It wasn't just guitarists do that. We'd play something and he'd say, "Oh, what was that?" And he hears stuff because he's got references from decent music. He hears stuff where he can grab it and then push you, and it's lovely writing like that, because when you're writing your own, sometimes you go down a path and you go, I don't know if that's any good, and then you change and you move on, and sometimes you lose something great. But when you've got someone like him there, who's not, of course he does all your melodies and he'll suggest some chords, and he's part of it's a completely equal process. But one of the things he's particularly good at is holding you back when you're about to move away from a good idea. and he'll sort of then encourage you to mind that. And I think there's that sort of big brotherly thing where he's very encouraging, and yeah, I mean that's what he's always been like to me. Really, is like a big brother. But
Tell us about those sessions then, where you'd have a guy who would pull up outside and go, fancy an ice cream, and tell us about working
no,
with him.
no, just one of my one of my favourite stories with Marty was I had come out of a long-term relationship, and that particular New Year, that ex-partner had got married, and he rang me on New Year's Day just to say, "Oh, how you doing?" You know, and I didn't give anything away, I didn't think, but he just sort of said to me, "Oh, what's the matter?" I said, "No, I'm good, you know, Happy New Year." And he's like, "Right, I'll be there in an hour." And he drove over from Windsor to my house, and I just sort of heard this beeping out of the window, and he's there looking up at us, and it's like another story where he one time just turned up outside my house at 8 in the morning, and there's someone like beeping outside. I thought, who the bloody hell is that? And I look out the window, and it's Marty, and it must have been like February or something, and he just got his head out the window. He's like, "Hey, do you want an ice cream?" And as we sort of, you know, got my clothes on, went out, and we went and did a song up at the studio. But yeah, he was really kind that day. He sort of drove round. He showed me all the places when he was a young artist, like when we were in the West, we lived there, and that's where the Beatles lived. And he just drove me around London for about 8 or 9 hours, just to make sure I had some company with a friend and I wasn't on my own. And yeah, it was just a really kind thing to do. Like people don't do that sort of thing, and just very sensitive that he picked up on it.
The Lost Chapter is an opportunity for him to show that different side, the one that you've articulated, Chris. So that for the fans will be a glorious tour.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be unbelievable, because I've said to Marty so many times when we've been in the studio. I mean, we would spend 5 days just laughing, whether it's just silly characters that you invent in the studio, whether it's stories of things he's done or people he's met along the way, or you'd never, you know, the time would go so fast. We'd be in there for hours because you'd just be laughing all the way through. But one thing we'd always be saying to Marty was, I wish the outside world had seen the person that I know when we're working together, the person who's very, very funny, very kind, very caring, and just loves music. You can't have a career like he's had with this amount of longevity and not love music and really know music. And people, even if you talk about Lovers All Around, people talk about that song. You'd need to be smart enough to know that was a great song and to know the Trogs. I mean, how many people know who the Trogs are? I mean, hopefully lots of our friends do, but you know, it takes a real music lover and expert to be able to choose the right covers as well, and that's before you find out that he's a great songwriter. So yeah, I just wish that more people knew this sort of funny, kind, lovely guy, because, you know, imagine being that famous that young and having all that success. And we see it with people all the time these days, but these days I think there's a lot more support there for young artists than there was back then. So the fact he's come out to where he is now and is making music like he does and working with the people he does and the way that he treats us all, you know, that's an unbelievable achievement when you think what he's been through and where he's come from, you know.